Dragons make everything better. Everything. Maybe not piles of gold in the mountain. Hi, everyone. Good morning! It's Monday, January 12th. I'm a little earlier than usual. Usually I start Mark Read stuff on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. I am leaving this week for Boston on Wednesday morning, 6:30 in the morning. But it's for a good reason. I have an event this Thursday. You should come to it. I have a post sticky on Mark Reads. You should look at it because I'm going everywhere. And then the next couple days, well, by the time you see this, actually, I should have my European UK tour up as well. I still have to plan Texas and other places, and I want to go back to New Mexico again. Just whatever. You should look at it. Anyway, I'm at Aresia this weekend. When this goes up, I will still be at Aresia. Excuse me, in Boston. So I'm getting stuff done early. This is the third section of guards. Guards. I feel like I have to say that dramatically there, exclamation points. It is for Cynthia. They're awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, let's do this. Can I also say, real quick, when you look at the splits for guards, the two sentence, there's always like a few words or maybe a full sentence that explains where the section starts and where does it end. If you read the first one and the last one for this specific sentence, it's actually a full sentence, isn't it? Wait, let me look at it again. Yeah, it totally is. Have fun with that. Anyway, the Supreme Grandmaster opened his eyes. He was lying on his back. How? Wait, what? Brother Dunnington was preparing to give him the kiss of life. The mere thought was enough to jerk anyone from the borders of consciousness. Well, he sat up, trying to shed the feeling that he weighed several tons and was covered in scales. Oh. Did he know? Wait. So I was under the impression that he had accidentally become the dragon. Oh! We did it, he whispered. The dragon. It came. I felt it. The brethren glanced at one another. We never saw nothing, said Brother Plasterer. Well, I might have seen something, said Brother Watchtower loyally. No, not here, snapped the Supreme Grandmaster. This is a pram. I need some coffee. I need coffee. You hardly want it to materialize here, do you? It was out there in the city, just for a few seconds. He pointed. Look. The brethren looked around guiltily, expecting at any moment the hot flame of retribution. In the center of the circle, the magic items were gently crumbling to dust. Even as they watched, Brother Dunnington's amulet collapsed. Sucked dry, whispered Brother Fingers. I'll be damned. $3 that amulet cost me, muttered Brother Dunnington. But it proves it works, said the Supreme Grandmaster. Don't you see, you fools? It works. We can summon dragons. Could be a bit expensive in magical items, said Brother Fingers doubtfully. $3 it was. No rubbish. I love... He's always making comments behind what everyone else is saying. Power, growled the Supreme Green Master, does not come cheap. Very true, nodded Brother Watchtower. Not cheap. Very true. He looked again at the little heap of exhausted magic. Core, he said. We did it, though, didn't we? We only went and bloody well did some magic, right? See, said Brother Fingers. I told you there was nothing to it. You all did exceptionally well, said the Supreme Grandmaster encouragingly. Should have been $6, but he said he'd cut his own throat and sell it to me for $3. He just is so interested in his own little world. Yeah, said Brother Watchtower. We got the hang of it all right. Didn't hurt a bit. We done real magic, and didn't get it by tooth fairies from out of the woodwork either. Brother Plasterer, I couldn't help noticing. The other brethren nodded. Real magic. Nothing to it. Everyone had just better watch out. Well, hang on, though, said Brother Plasterer. Where's this dragon gone? I mean, did we really summon it or not? Fancy you asking a silly question like that, said Brother Watchtower doubtfully. The Supreme Grandmaster brushed the dust off his mystic robe. We summoned it, he said, and it came, but only as long as the magic lasted. Then it went back. If we want it to stay longer, we need more magic. Understand? And that is what we must get. How? Oh, God. $3 I shan't see again in a hurry. Shut up! Dearest Father, wrote Carrot. Oh, okay. We're switching over to Carrot. Well, here I am in Ankh-Morpork. It is not like at home. I think it must have changed a bit since Mr. Varnesh's great-grandfather was here. I don't think people here know right from wrong. I think they do. I just think it's a little different. A little different. Excuse me. I found Captain Vimes in a common alehouse. Remember what you said about a good dwarf not going into such places, but since he did not come out, I went in. He was lying with his head on the table. When I spoke to him, he said, "Pull the other one, kid. It has got bells on it." I believe he was the worse for drink. He told me to find a place to stay and report to Sergeant Cullen at the watch house tonight. He said anyone wanting to join the guard needed their head examined. Mr. Vaneschi did not mention this. Perhaps it is done for reasons of hygiene. Capitalized, of course. I went for a walk. There are many people. There are many people here. I found a place. It is called the Shade. No! Don't! No! That's not a place you just go find! Oh, no! I found a place and it's called the Shades. Then I saw some men trying to rob a young lady. I said about them. They did not know how to fight properly, and one of them tried to kick me in the vitals, but I was wearing the protective as instructed, and he hurt himself. That's great. Oh, I love that little... Okay, then the lady came up to me and said, was I interested in bed? I said yes. She took me to where she lived, a boarding house, I think it is called. It is run by Mrs. Palm. What kind of bed is she talking about? Because that could be something else. The lady whose purse it was, she is called Reet, she said. You should have seen him. There were 3 of them. It was amazing. Mrs. Palm said, it is on the house. She said, what a big protective. So I went upstairs and fell asleep, although it is a very noisy place. Okay, so it is. Oh my God. Reet woke me up once or twice to say, do you want anything? But they had no apples. So I have fallen on my feet, as they say here, but I don't see how that is possible because if you fall off of your feet, it is common sense. Touché! There's certainly a lot to do. When I went to see the sergeant, I saw a place called the Thieves Guild. There's 2 exclamation points. This letter is so adorable. I asked Mrs. Palm, and she said, of course. She said the leaders of the thieves in the city meet there. I went to the watch house and met Sergeant Cullen, a very fat man, and when I told him about the Thieves Guild, he said, don't be an idiot. I do not think he is serious. He's very serious. He says, don't you worry about Thieves Guild. This is all what you have to do. You walk along the streets at night shouting, it's 12 o'clock and all's well. I said, what if it is not all well? And he said, you bloody well find another street. This is not leadership. Oh, I've been given some chainmail. It is rusty and not well made. They give you money for being a guard. It is $20 a month. When I get it, I will send you it. Is he so... Oh, Carrot. I hope you are all well, and that shaft number 5 is now open. This afternoon I will go and look at the Thieves Guild. Oh, that's going to be fun. It is disgraceful. If I do something about it, it will be a feather in my cap. I'm getting the hang of how they talk here already. Your loving son, Carrot. P.S. Give all my love to Minty. I really miss her. I can't even make fun of him. He's so adorable. Lord Veterinarian, the patrician of... no. Did I just say Lord Veterinarian? Holy fuck. It happened. Most of the letters are there. Lord Vetinari, the patrician of Ankh-Morpork, put his hand over his eyes. He did what? I was marched through the streets, said Urdu Van Pew, currently president of the Guild of Thieves, Burglars, and Allied Trades, in broad daylight, with my hands tied together. He took a few steps toward the patrician's severe chair of office, waving a finger. You know very well that we have kept within the budget, he said, to be humiliated like that, like a common criminal. There had better be a full apology, he said, or you will have another strike on your hands. We will be driven to it despite our natural civic responsibilities, he added. Very natural. It was the finger. The finger was a mistake. The patrician was staring coldly at the finger. Van Pew followed his gaze and quickly lowered the digit. The patrician was not a man you shook a finger at unless you wanted to end up being able to count only to 9. Oh, shit. And you say this was one person, said Lord Vetinari. Yes, that is, Van Pew hesitated. It did sound weird, now he came to tell someone. But there are hundreds of you in there, said the patrician calmly. Thick as... You should excuse the expression. Thieves! Oh, I like when characters themselves use puns and are aware of it. Oh, I need to drink to that. Van Pugh opened and shut his mouth a few times. The honest answer would have been yes, and if anyone had come sidling in and skulking around the corridors, it would have been the worse for them. It was the way he strode in, as if he owned the place, that fooled everyone. That and the fact that he kept hitting people and telling them to mend their ways. The patrician nodded. "I shall deal with the matter momentarily," he said. It was a good word. It always made people hesitate. They were never quite sure whether he meant he'd deal with it now or just deal with it briefly, and no one ever dared to ask. Van Pugh backed down. "Full apology, mark you. I have a position to maintain," he added. "Thank you. Do not let me detain you," said the patrician, once again giving the language his own individual spin. Oh my god, he loves puns. Finally, a character who loves puns themselves. "Right. Good. Thank you. Well, very well," said the thief. "After all, you have such a lot of work to do," Lord Vetinari went on. "Well, of course this is the case." The thief hesitated. The patrician's last remark had barbs on it. You found yourself waiting for him to strike. He said, hoping for a clue. With so much business being conducted, that is. Panic took over the thief's features. Randomized guilt flooded his mind. It was a case of what had he done. It was a question of... No, let me do that again. It wasn't a case of what he had done. It was a question of what the patrician had found out about. The man had eyes everywhere, none of them so terrifying as the icy blue ones just above his nose. Don't quite follow," he began. "Curious choice of targets." The patrician picked up a sheet of paper. "For example, a crystal ball belonging to a fortune-teller in Shear Street, a small ornament from the temple of Offler, the crocodile god, and so on." Gewgaws? I've never seen that word in my life. Let's find out what you mean. A showy thing, especially one that is useless or worthless. Oh, I learned a new word today. "I'm afraid I really don't know," said the head thief. The patrician leaned forward. "No unlicensed thieving, surely," he said. Well, there's a footnote right here. One of the remarkable innovations introduced by the patrician was to make the Thieves' Guild responsible for theft, with annual budgets, forward planning, and above all, rigid job protection. Thus, in return for an agreed average level of crime per annum, the thieves themselves saw to it that unauthorized crime was met with the full force of injustice, which was generally a stick with nails in it. It's so clever, it hurts. "I shall look into it directly," stuttered the head thief. "Depend upon it." The patrician gave him a sweet smile. "I'm sure I can," he said. "Thank you for coming to see me. Don't hesitate to leave." Don't hesitate to leave. The thief shuttled out. It was always like this with the patrician, he reflected bitterly. You came to him with a perfectly reasonable complaint. Next thing you knew, you were shuffling out backward, bowing and scraping, relieved simply to be getting away. You had to hand it to the patrician, he admitted grudgingly. If you didn't, he sent men to come and take it away. That's a pun, too. When he'd gone, Lord Vetinari rang the little bronze bell that summoned his secretary. The man's name, despite his handwriting, oh boy, was Lupine Once. He appeared pen-poised. You could say this about Lupine Once. He was neat. He always gave the impression of just being completed. Even his hair was so smoothed down and oiled it looked as though it had been painted on. The watch appears to be having some difficulty with the Thieves' Guild, said the patrician. Van Pugh has been in here claiming that a member of the watch arrested him. What for, sir? Being a thief, apparently, said the secretary. I know, but... Wait, excuse me, a member of the watch, said the secretary. I know, but just sort it out, will you? The patrician smiled to himself. It was always hard to fathom Lord Vetinari's idiosyncratic sense of humor, but a vision of the red-faced, irate head thief kept coming back to him. One of the patrician's greatest contributions to the reliable operation of Ankh-Morpork had been, very early in his administration, the legalizing of the ancient Guild of Thieves. Crime was always with us, he reasoned, and therefore, if you were going to have crime, it at least should be organized crime. Which is also a pun, because he doesn't need... Never mind, I don't need to explain that. And so the guild had been encouraged to come out of the shadows, build a big guild house, take their place at civic banquets, and set up their training college with day-release courses, and city and guild certificates, and everything. In exchange for the winding down of the watch, they agreed, while trying to keep their faces straight, to keep crime levels to a level to be determined annually. That way, everyone could plan ahead, so Lord Vetinari, and part of the uncertainty... I'm sorry, let me try that again. That way, everyone could plan ahead, said Lord Vetinari, and part of the uncertainty had been removed from the chaos that is life. And then, a little while later, the patrician summoned the leading thieves again and said, oh, by the way, there was something else. What was it now? Ah, yes. I know who you are, he said. I know where you live. I know what kind of horse you ride. I know where your wife has her hair done. I know where your lovely children. How old are they now? My, doesn't time fly? I know where they play. So you won't forget about what we agreed, will you? And he smiled. So did they, after a fashion. What? And in fact, it turned out very satisfactorily from everyone's point of view. It took the head thieves a very little time to grow paunches and start having coats of arms made and meet in a proper building rather than smoky dens, which no one had liked much. A complicated arrangement of receipts and vouchers saw to it that, while everyone was eligible for the attentions of the guild, no one had too much, and this was very acceptable, at least to those citizens who were rich enough to afford the quite reasonable premiums the guild charged for an uninterrupted life. There was a strange foreign word for this. Insurance. Thank you, Two Flower, for introducing this concept. No one knew exactly what it had originally meant, but Ankh Morpork had made it its own. That's amazing. That's amazing. The Watch hadn't liked it, but the plain fact was that the thieves were far better at controlling crime than the Watch had ever been. After all, the Watch had to work twice as hard to cut crime just a little, whereas all the guild had to do was work less. Oh, shit. And so the city had prospered, while the Watch had dwindled away, like a useless appendix, into a handful of unemployables who no one in their right mind could ever take seriously. The last thing anyone wanted them to do was to get it into their heads to fight crime, but seeing the head thief discommoded was always worth the trouble, the patrician felt. Oh boy. Captain Vines knocked very hesitantly at the door, because each tap echoed around his skull. Enter. Vimes removed his helmet, tucked it under his arm, and pushed the door open. Its creak was a blunt saw across the front of his brain. He always felt uneasy in the presence of lupine wants. Come to that, he was felt uneasy in the presence of Lord Vetinari, but that was different. That was down to breeding. An ordinary fear, of course, whereas he'd known one since their childhood in the Shades. The boy had shown promise even then. He was never a gang leader. Never a gang leader. Hadn't got the strength or stamina for that. And after all, what was the point of being the gang leader? Behind every gang leader were a couple of lieutenants bucking for promotion. Being a gang leader is not a job with long-term prospects. But in every gang there is a pale youth who's allowed to stay because he's the one who comes up with all the clever ideas, usually to do with old women and unlocked shops. This was Wance's natural place in the order of things. Vimes had been one of the middle rankers, the falsetto equivalent of a yes-man. He remembered Wance as a skinny little kid, always tagging along behind in hand-me-down pants with a kind of odd skipping run he'd invented to keep up with the bigger boys, and forever coming up with fresh ideas to stop them idly ganging up on him, which was the usual recreation if nothing more interesting presented itself. It was superb training for the rigors of adulthood, and Wance became good at it. Yes, they'd both started in the gutter, but Wance had worked his way up, whereas, as he himself would be the first to admit, Vimes nearly worked his way along. Every time, he seemed to be getting anywhere he spoke his mind or said the wrong thing, usually both at once. That was what made him uncomfortable around Wance. It was the ticking of the bright clockwork of ambition. Vimes had never mastered ambition. It was something that happened to other people. Ah, Vimes. Sir, said Vimes woodenly. He didn't try to salute in case he fell over. He wished he'd had the time to drink dinner. Oh. Wance rummaged in the papers of his desk. Strange things afoot, Vimes. Serious complaint about you, I'm afraid, he said. Wance didn't wear glasses. If he had worn glasses, he'd have peered at Vimes over the top of them. Sir? One of your night watchmen. Seems he arrested the head of the Thieves' Guild. Vimes swayed a little and tried hard to focus. He wasn't ready for this sort of thing. Sorry, sir, he said. Seem to have lost you there. I said, Vimes, that one of your men arrested the head of the Thieves' Guild. One of my men? Yes. Vimes's scattered brain cells tried valiantly to regroup. A member of the Watch, he said. Wance grinned mirthlessly, tied him up, and left him in front of the palace. There's a bit of a stink about it, I'm afraid. There was a note. Ah, here it is. This man is charged with conspiracy to commit crime under Section 14(3) of the General Felonies Act 1678 by me, Carrot Iron Founderson. His last name was Iron Founderson. Vimes squinted at him. 14 I. I thought it was 14.3. Okay. Apparently, said Wance. What does that mean? I really haven't the faintest notion, said Wance dryly. And what about the name, Carrot? But we don't do things like that, said Vimes. You can't go around arresting the Thieves' Guild. I mean, we'd be at it all day. Apparently this Carrot thinks otherwise. The captain shook his head and winced. Carrot? Doesn't ring a bell. The tone of blurred conviction was enough even for Wance, who was momentarily taken aback. He was quite... The secretary hesitated. Carrot, he said. I've heard the name before, seen it written down. His face won't blink. The volunteer, that was it. Remember me showing you? Vimes stared at him. Wasn't there a letter from, I don't know, some dwarf? All about serving the community and keeping the streets safe, that's right. Begging that his son would be found suitable for a humble position in the watch. The secretary was rummaging among his files. What had he done? Said Vimes. Nothing. That was it. Not a blessed thing. Vimes' brow creased as his thoughts shaped themselves around a new concept. I love that this is them just reacting to the impossible. But the impossible is such a mundane thing to us. I love it. A volunteer, he said. Yes. He didn't have to join. He wanted to join. And you said it must be a joke. And I said we ought to try and get more ethnic minorities into the watch. You remember? Vimes tried to. It wasn't easy. He was vaguely aware that he drank to forget. What made it rather pointless was that he couldn't remember what it was he was forgetting anymore. In the end, he just drank to drink. Nope, he just drank to forget about drinking. A trawl of the chaotic assortment of recollections that he didn't even try to dignify anymore by the name of memory produced no clue. Do I? He said helplessly. Wands folded his hands on the desk and leaned forward. Now look, Captain, he said. Lordship wants an explanation. I don't want to have to tell him the captain of the night watch hasn't the faintest idea what goes on among the men under, if I may use the term loosely, his command. That sort of thing only leads to trouble, questions asked, that sort of thing. Now, we don't want that, do we? Do we? No, sir, Vimes muttered. A vague recollection of someone earnestly talking to him in the bunch of grapes was bobbing guiltily in the back of his mind. Surely that hadn't been a dwarf. Not unless the qualification had been radically altered, at any rate. Of course we don't, said Wands, for old time's sake. And so on. So I think of something to tell him, and you, Captain, will make a point of finding out what's going on and putting a stop to it. Give this dwarf a short lesson in what it means. I see that. In what it means to be a guard, all right? Ha ha, said Vimes dutifully. I'm sorry, said Wands. Oh. Thought you made an ethnic joke there, sir. Look, Vimes, I'm being very understanding in the circumstances. Now I want you to get out there and sort this out. Do you understand? Vimes saluted. The black depression that always lurked ready to take advantage of his sobriety moved in on his tongue. Right you are, Mr. Secretary, he said. I'll see to it that he learns that arresting thieves is against the law. He wished he hadn't said that. If he didn't say things like that, he'd have been better off now. Captain of the palace guard. Big man. Giving him the watch had been the patrician's little joke, but Wands was already reading a new document on his desk. If he noticed the sarcasm, he didn't show it. Very good, he said. Holy shit. Dearest Mother, Carrot wrote, yes, 2 carrot letters in the same section. It has been a much better day. I went into the Thieves' Guild and arrested the chief miscreant and dragged him to the patrician's palace. No more trouble from him, I fancy. And Mrs. Palm says I can stay in the attic because it is always useful to have a man around the place. You are not staying where you think you're staying, sir. Oh, my God. This was because in the night there were men the worse for drink making a fuss in one of the girls' room, and I had to speak to them, and they showed fight. One of them tried to hurt me with his knee, but I had to protect him, and Mrs. Palm says he has broken his patella, but I needn't pay for a new one. This poor boy. I do not understand some of the watch duties. I have a partner. His name is Nobby. He says I am too keen. He says I have got a lot to learn. I think this is true, because I have only got up to page 326 in the laws and ordinances of the cities of Ankh and Morport. Only? Love to all, your son, Carrot. P.S. Love to Minty. Oh, shit. It wasn't just the loneliness, it was the back-to-front way of living. That was it, thought Vimes. The night watch got up when the rest of the world was going to bed, and went to bed when dawn drifted over the landscape. You spent your whole time in the damp, dark streets in a world of shadows. The night watch attracted the kind of people who, for one reason or another, were inclined to that kind of life. He reached the watch house. It was an ancient and surprisingly large building, wedged between a tannery and a tailor, who made suspicious leather goods. It must have been quite imposing once, but quite a lot of it was now uninhabitable and patrolled out only by owls and rats. Over the door, a motto, in the ancient tongue of the city, was now almost eroded by time and grime and lichen, but could just be made out. Fabricati diem PVNC. It translated, I was just going to ask what that meant, according to Sergeant Cullen, who had served in foreign parts. Oh, it's actually spelled correctly instead of FORN, and considered himself an expert on languages as To protect and to serve. Well, that's not really what they do. Yes, being a guard must have meant something once. Sergeant Colin, he thought, and as he stumbled into the musty gloom, let me do that again. Sergeant Colin, he thought, as he stumbled into the musty gloom. Now there was a man who liked the dark. Sergeant Colin owed 30 years of happy marriage to the fact that Mrs. Colin worked all day and Sergeant Colin worked all night. They communicated by means of notes. He got her tea ready before he left at night. She left his breakfast nice and hot in the oven in the mornings. They had 3 grown-up children, all born, Vimes had assumed, as a result of extremely persuasive handwriting. And Corporal Nobbs, well, anyone like Nobby had unlimited reasons for not wishing to be seen by other people. You didn't have to think hard about that. The only reason you couldn't say that Nobby was close to the Animal Kingdom was that the Animal Kingdom would get up and walk away. And then, of course, there was himself. Just a skinny, unshaven collection of bad habits marinated in alcohol. I don't even know Vimes. I've known Vimes for 67 pages, and that sounds horrifyingly accurate. Oh. And that was the night watch, just the 3 of them. Once there had been dozens, hundreds, now just 3. Vimes fumbled his way up the stairs, groped his way into his office, slumped into the primeval leather chair with its prolapsed stuffing, scrabbled at the bottom drawer, grabbed bottle, bit cork, tugged, spat out cork, drank, began his day. The world swam into focus. Life is just chemicals. A drop here, a drip there, everything's changed. A mere dribble of fermented juices, and suddenly you're going to live another few hours. This is really sad, actually. Once, in the days when this had been a respectable district, some hopeful owner of the tavern next door had paid a wizard a considerable sum of money for an illuminated sign, every letter a different color. Now it worked erratically and sometimes short-circuited in the damp. At the moment, the E was a garish pink and flashed on and off at random. Vimes had grown accustomed to it. It seemed like part of life. He had stared at the flickering play of light on the crumbling plaster for a while, and then raised one sandaled foot and thumped heavily on the floorboards twice. After a few minutes of distant wheezing indicated that Sergeant Colin was climbing the stairs. Vimes counted silently. Colin always paused for 6 seconds at the top of the flight to get some of his breath back. On the 7th second, the door opened. The sergeant's face appeared around it like a harvest moon. You could describe Sergeant Colin like this. He was the sort of man who, if he took up a military career, would automatically gravitate to the post of sergeant. You couldn't imagine him ever being a corporal, or, for that matter, a captain. If he didn't take up a military career, then he looked cut out for something like, perhaps, a sausage butcher. Some job where a big red face and a tendency to sweat, even in frosty weather, were practically part of the specification. He saluted and, with considerable care, placed a scruffy piece of paper on Vimes' desk and smoothed it out. "Evening, Captain," he said. "Yesterday's incident reports, and that. Also, you owe 4 pence to the tea club." "What's this about a dwarf, Sergeant?" said Vimes abruptly. Colin's brow wrinkled. What dwarf?" "The one who just joined the night watch." "Nope, the night watch. This is not Game of Thrones. Name of, Vimes hesitated. Carrot? Or something? Him?" Colin's mouth dropped open. "He's a dwarf? I always said you couldn't trust them little buggers. He fooled me all right, Captain. The little sod must have lied about his height." Colin was a sizist, at least when it came to people smaller than himself. Oh boy. "Do you know what he arrested?" "No, let me do this again. Sorry, I keep... Do you know he arrested the president of the Thieves Guild this morning?" "What for?" "For being the president of the Thieves Guild, it seems." The sergeant looked puzzled. "Where's the crime in that?" "I think perhaps I'd better have a word with this carrot," said Vimes. "Didn't you see him, sir?" said Colin. "He said he'd reported to you, sir." "I, must have been busy at the time. Not on my mind," said Vimes. "Yes, sir," said Colin, politely. Vimes had just enough self-respect left to look away and shuffle the strata of paperwork on his desk. "We've got to get him off the streets as soon as possible," he muttered. "Next thing you'll know, he'll be bringing in the chief of the Assassin's Guild for bloody well killing people. Where is he?" "I sent him out with Corporal Nobbs, Captain. I said he'd show him the ropes, sort of thing." "You sent a raw recruit out with Nobby?" said Vimes warily. "Oh, no." Colin stuttered. Or Colin. It could be Colin, I guess. I keep saying Colin because that's what it looks like. "Well, sir, experienced man. I thought Corporal Nobbs could teach him a lot. Let's just hope he's a slow learner," said Vimes, ramming his brown iron helmet on his head. "Come on." When they stepped out of the watch house, there was a ladder against the tavern wall. A bulky man at the top of it swore under his breath as he wrestled with the illuminated sign. "It's the E that doesn't work properly," Vimes called up. "What?" "The E, and the T sizzles when it rains. It's about time it was fixed." "Fixed? Oh, yes, fixed. That's what I'm doing, all right, fixing." He's probably stealing it. The watchman splashed off through the puddles. Brother Watchtower shook his head slowly and "Oh, shit!" and turned his attention once again to his screwdriver. Shit. Well, he is stealing it, but I thought it was one of the thieves. Oh my god. I thought, I'm gonna go write him down.